This portion of the CU podcast is brought to you by Turtle Beach, the #1 brand in gaming headsets and accessories. Their new Gen 3 Stealth 600 headset picks up crystal clear sound to improve your gaming experience. Their headsets are so comfortable, and best of all, Turtle Beach has Stealth 600 models for PlayStation, PC, and Xbox, including cross-compatibility and Bluetooth, so you only need one headset for all of your systems. Whether you're a casual gamer or haven't touched grass in weeks, Turtle Beach has the right headset for you. For a limited time only, our listeners get 10% off their entire order when you use code CUPodcast at turtlebeach.com. That's 10% off your order at turtlebeach.com with promo code CUPodcast.
I've been using mine for about a week now, and what I really like about it is the battery life. It's comfortable. My prior headset wouldn't make it through a single session, and this one states it has 80 hours of battery life, and I haven't had to recharge it yet. And we all have that one friend whose headset always seems to die right when you're down to the last two teams. Turtle Beach's Stealth 600 headset has an insane 80-hour battery life with quick charge, so you rarely have to think about charging it. And they don't just have headsets. Turtle Beach has every gaming accessory you could think of. They have flight and racing simulators, controllers, keyboards, and mice. They're all high quality at prices that aren't going to break the bank.
Get the ultimate immersive gaming experience with Turtle Beach today. For a limited time only, head to turtlebeach.com and use code CUPodcast for 10% off your entire order. That's 10% off your order at turtlebeach.com with promo code CUPodcast. GameStop shut down Game Informer magazine.
They sure did.
About a couple of weeks ago. And I discussed it at the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo with special guest Frank Cifaldi of the Video Game History Foundation. So why don't you go listen to our great conversation right now discussing it. GameStop shuts down Game Informer, the longest running gaming magazine in the U.S. This is an article from Kotaku by Ethan Gach. I'll give you the really short one. Game Informer, the longest running gaming magazine in the U.S., is officially dead, and GameStop killed it. It began publishing in 1991 and has been one of the last remaining physical gaming magazines in the world, with cover stories that continue to share deep dives and exclusive interviews on the biggest games coming out, from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to Star Wars Outlaws No More. So I'm not equipped to talk about this all by myself. Right now, I could do a decent job, but I have a guest that's going to assist me. I'm going to introduce, from the Video Game History Foundation, Frank Cifaldi. Yeah. Where is Frank? I'm here. Frank obviously works a lot with video game preservation, knows a lot about video game magazines.
I know a lot about games.
Can you sit over here, Frank?
No, I want to be really far away from you.
Oh, okay. Get you on camera. So I've known Frank for...
Oh, do you want me on camera? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've known Frank for about 10 years, I think.
That sounds about right, yeah.
And we've done a couple panels in the past together, looking at rare games and giving our valuations of them in the past. Is that
the Retro Game Roadshow
back in
Chris Kohler's jam, yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of like each other. So when this news hit, my reaction was pretty much not shocked, because GameStop is not the company it was even 4 years ago at this point, and it wasn't the company it was 10, 20 years ago. And obviously the face of gaming has changed with the rise of digital media has sort of altered the future of video game selling in general. I helped produce a documentary that goes into that, and in 20 years, will we have video game stores anymore? Will they not exist?
I was in that documentary.
Frank was. We had a conversation
right.
with Kelsey. We did that little round table. Mm-hmm. So when they announced this, and I'm not going to lie and say, yeah, I subscribed to Game Informer in every issue. I mean, back in the day, I probably had a couple issues. I think I got a couple of freebies, like back maybe in the Funko-Land days, where here's a freebie to try to get you to do the membership, to get the subscription. So I'm not going to front and say that, I'm like the diehard Game Informer guy. I'm not. But for a magazine that was around forever, and the longest running one it was, and we've had so many other magazines go under, besides journalism websites, it's a blow, and it hurts. Even if only 100 people read the magazine, we still have a lot of good journalism people that are out of work and are still doing good work, and it stinks.
So my gut reaction at the time was, it's a disgrace, just because with the amount of cash that GameStop has on hand from being a meme stock, they have billions of cash reserves. They've laid off tons of people past years, even before the pandemic, and then after, when they came back. You think that they can keep around this spunky little magazine? They couldn't. So that was my thoughts on that. Frank, what was your takeaway of that?
My takeaway from, my reaction to what you're just saying is that, GameStop's not a charity,
Sure.
and print medium, the print media has been dying I would not even say slow death, a quick death for the last 10 years, right? The text on screen is telling us basically it is the last video game magazine in the US for a reason, which is that
one of the last remaining. So
well, I can tell you. Okay, I will break it down. PC Gamer still publishes a US edition, but it's mainly based out of the UK. Other than that, there's just a weird company called Centennial that does the weird one-off Roblox and Minecraft things that you see at the grocery store, and that is it for U.S. video games.
They're not going to count the smaller indie publications like a Retro.
Oh, sure, you could also, but we're talking
like a mainstream giant one.
I was going to say newsstand, but Game Informer was never a newsstand magazine. Game Informer was actually a very weird situation where it was never ever sold on newsstands. It was only ever sold through first Funko, and then after the acquisition through GameStop. But first of all, I just want to echo what you said. This is a tragedy, right? This is a really sad thing. I had friends there. They were really good people. They did really good work. They did the best that they could. But this is a really challenging industry, video game journalism. And yes, while the GameStop Corporation might have money to continue printing this, I don't know that we really understand the internal metrics of what they were getting out of having a magazine. I can tell you that the business model for Game Informer, I'm not making this up, this is what was told to me by Game Informer, was that they made a magazine that told GameStop customers what games to buy at GameStop. That was the function of Game Informer from GameStop's perspective.
So the GameStop version of Nintendo Power, we're going to market the games back to you.
Right. The idea is we're sending you this magazine, and you're going to see the good reviews, and you're going to come to GameStop specifically and buy these games.
Sure.
We don't live in a world anymore where people go to GameStop to buy video games. Technically some do sometimes, but the idea of physically going to a store to buy a video game is a very kind of niche thing at this point. Even people who
even pre-order them and then coming to the store to pick
why
them
would
up.
they do that when Amazon gives it to you that same day?
Right. The day after.
Yeah, sure, but you know what I mean?
Close.
It's kind of a big ask to go to this specific store to buy a video game, and I think GameStop's numbers, because of the meme stocks or whatever, sure, there's sort of fake money floating around, but GameStop isn't doing well in terms of game sales.
Sure. Well, it's real money, because what happens with these companies, if you don't know, when the stock goes up, they put an option to sell shares. They get a cash infusion, and that's what GameStop did. I think twice during all of it. And before that, they hadn't pulled a quarterly profit in forever, operating profit outside of the stock till I think it was 2022 was the first time in several years that actually pulled a profit. And I'm guessing that was because of stores coming back and all, finally getting a good supply of the new consoles for this generation. But GameStop, we talked about it, Ian and I, before the pandemic, that GameStop was not long for this world. And unfortunately, it's hard to know what would happen. Obviously, all these people doing that work would be a shame, but they were shuttering stores left and right even before the pandemic. And then they did more, and they came back in 2022. I believe they did another round of layoffs, both corporate and all the stores. So obviously, operating-wise, they're still in trouble to this day. They're still trying to find their footing. I guess where my sort of reaction is well, when you look at a magazine like that, I tweeted out that it's a loss leader. And if you folks don't know what a loss leader is, it's something a company puts out that they know they're going to lose money on in order to just get eyes on it, all the other product and everything else. So to me, something like a Game Informer magazine was always something that, well, if it makes a profit on its own, fine, but hey, this is a marketing, part of our marketing budget. That's the way I if I was in GameStop, I would look at it.
That is exactly what I just said, right? Like,
sure.
Like that's.
But like, it doesn't have to make money itself. You're saying yes, even if people get the magazine, they may not want to go to the store.
It was never a profit. Well, not never, but like it was not meant to be a profitable magazine.
Sure.
It was always a loss leader. Just
sure.
like we described. It was something that got people to buy games from GameStop.
So I guess
in theory, but. I think actually tracking that is a very difficult thing.
Oh, I can guarantee they never actually tracked
right.
it. Right.
I think it was just kind of, a guess that like probably we sell games based on this. And as long as the cost of the magazine remains relatively low, we'll let it go.
Sure, I think you're giving probably the corporate too much credit though. I don't think they probably thought that deeply about it.
They're a bunch of assholes, so yeah.
So that's what I mean, like, we're thinking rationally about it. They're probably like, oh, it's a magazine, get rid of it.
Well, I mean, like my fear for years was that GameStop would get someone new at an exec level who would come in and like look at the sheets and go, "We have a magazine?" And that might be what happened. Like, why do we have this magazine?
Sure.
Let them go. We need money.
But people are saying, well, it's like a rounding error in terms of what the operating cost
probably
was.
I think the masthead of the last issue was like 10 people. Like they were already a skeleton crew.
So if you have a skeleton crew, the printing costs for the magazine, because it's doing digital and physical, the printing costs wouldn't have been a ton of money. So we're not looking at a big cost for GameStop.
Right. And
I guess that's my argument. It's not a big cost. It's a legacy product. It's the only thing connecting you to the original, Funko Land or anything from that era. And it's bad PR now that it's gone in the way that it's gone. They didn't do it in a classy way. It was very classist, which we'll talk about a little bit. So it was just like, not that there's a great way to lay off people and shutter a magazine. They did it in the worst possible way.
Well, and they have a history of this too. So in 2019, they laid off half of Game Informer's staff. Just cut them off, and like it was done in a way where they didn't even talk to the editorial directors of the magazine.
See like who's
like someone at a corporate level just looked at a staff sheet and just arbitrarily decided who would go.
Like a Thanos method? Like snap the finger and half the people
It basically was, yeah. And like as far as I can tell, the people that they let go were anyone that didn't have like senior in the title. They just let all the lower ends go. And it's like, okay, but they were the ones who were actually like doing most of the content. And if you had like actually spoken to your editorial director, right, like they might have come up with a plan for you. But my only point here is that they're assholes, right? Like that they make arbitrary decisions, and so
Which isn't how you run a business, and that's probably why one of the reasons they're at where they're at. And they got saved by meme stock and the short selling technicality sort of vortex that I won't get into again. But it was like a once in a generational sort of cash infusion for a business that did not deserve it operationally. That's basically what happened. So I guess one of the other reasons I'm upset, because with a lot of that money, GameStop, could have done a lot of things. And before the pandemic, before the new folks got on, like Ryan Cohen, who was with Chewy, wants to do all the digital stuff we'll get into, they did try some things out. We talked about in 2016, they tried to do the retro game stuff at the shops. They did a terrible job rolling it out. It's something they should have had probably forever and never gotten rid of, but they tried to do it. They tried to, okay, we're going to bring in a retro game to the stores, we're going to have a location where we clean everything and everything. They did pieces on it, and it was bad. They ended up selling, counterfeit games. They ended up selling stuff that wasn't listed properly, and they eventually got out of it for the most part. I think eventually they ended up wholesaling whatever was remaining in like their Texas location to one or two of the big online retailers. So they try to do that. They try to do a couple of pilot stores where like, we're going to do like an actual sort of like gaming meetup area, where we have snacks and we can do tabletop and things like that. And it's like, okay, this is interesting, but it never went anywhere, and I'm not sure it would have helped in the long run anyway. This is stuff you have to do decades before it gets to the point where, oh my God, we need this. You know what I mean? It's like, so the point is this: with all this money and all this focus, with it being a meme stock darling, there's like 3 different documentaries about the GameStop stock. We need 3 for this anyway. With all that money, what did they do with it? They tried to do an NFT marketplace. Like that was like the biggest thing they tried to do. Not try to become a digital game marketplace, which may make the most sense to try to do something or partner with someone. Not even try to be like a AA or small, game developer and be like, oh, we're gonna just use some of this money and we'll partner with some publisher.
That is not a safe business.
But I'm just saying, at least that would be more in line with, hey, we sell games.
That is a more dangerous business than a physical video game store.
But not more dangerous than NFTs, though. Because
yes.
So they wasted so much time, energy, and money is the part where I'm not sure about trying to start an NFT marketplace. went absolutely nowhere because they got into it way too late, later in 2022, when by that point NFTs were already dying because they hit their zenith in 2021. And it ended up being a joke. We talked about in the podcast how like the stuff were going for like, pennies. Like no one was buying and selling this stuff. They came out with their own token, and they sold a bunch of it almost immediately and made like tens of millions of dollars. The problem is when you do that, you crash the value of the coin when you come out with those coins. So it's not clear if GameStop at the time they rolled all this out and got all the tech in place really wanted to continue with it, or they knew it was gone. Here's the timeline: April 2021, they seek a blockchain analyst. May 2021, they launch a landing page for a site where people are like, "What is this?" The blockchain division was revealed in January 2022. The immutable deal, and then $100 million fund, grant fund for cryptos. So when that started at the time, Ian and I were like, well, maybe they're doing like an NFT token for games that are attached to the blockchain so you can buy and sell them. Like, we were trying to like wrap our mind around what.
Someone there probably thought that was a thing, yeah.
Maybe, but they did nothing with it. So like, I was thinking, well, maybe this could actually be them. We can buy and resell digital games attached to, like, there's only one of them, you know what I mean? We can pass it around. But that's not what they did. They were just selling NFTs, and people were submitting any garbage to the site, and it got absolutely nowhere. So it was gone, I think, within about a year. It was gone. They launched the wallet NFT Twitter in May 2022. Marketplace launch and layoffs July 2022.
While ditching its CFO, I think I just saw, yeah.
Oh, gaming NFTs were added in October 2022. I didn't know what games were on there. I think it wasn't that many, if anything. Let's see. And then I think it was gone. Let's see. SEC filed suggests minimal impact in March 2023, meaning like it's not going to affect the market chase that much and the blockchain. That's what they said. Let's see. GameStop fires a CEO in June 2023.
Uh-oh, I like that.
Yeah, so maybe they realized this was a bad mistake leading into this. The crypto wallet's gone August 2023, about a year, we'll just say about. The NFT Twitter account goes July, September 2023. So you see how it was a disaster. And the point is that they lost a lot of money, they probably lost some, but they gained money by selling their garbage NFT.
I mean, this company's been scrambling to figure out how they make money for years, right? And
sure.
It's just another one of these weird, like, this is just the same thing as a concept store, right? It's like, my CEO buddy told me this will work.
Sure, but a concept store, though, is still aligned with what your business theory actually is.
You're right. Yeah.
So I guess that's my larger point is like, what does GameStop want to be at this point? And what do they want to be perceived as? Which could be different things, because it's the only legacy, at least in the U.S. legacy corporate game store that's left, if they gobble up everyone else. But when you do things like this, even if people are no longer going to your stores or visiting, this makes you less want to do business with a GameStop when you say you don't care about actual games, you just want to get in on some NFT craze, which is garbage. People lose their shirts and this stuff, and all the energy use helps to destroy the planet a little bit quicker on top of it. That's all I'm saying about that. It's just not good.
Yeah, I mean, anyone with half a brain cell knew that NFTs were not going to work. I mean,
sure.
I'm not trying to defend them or anything, but to me this just seems like, well, let's try this.
Yes.
And it's just like, that's just a trend that they and 80 other game companies were chasing that year that didn't work out. But I mean, is your point that like they should have kept a magazine going instead of trying stuff like this?
It would make more sense to align to their actual business of what they are and what they've done.
Yeah, okay. So
and it's a legacy product.
I agree that like it makes sense, like brand-wise, right? Like, of course, like it makes more sense for a video game store to have a video game magazine than like a blockchain wallet, whatever. I don't know.
Yes, because now you have idiots like me talking about it.
Yeah,
in front of you in an IMAX theater.
But I don't know that. I don't know that like that NFT play affected the magazine business. You know what I mean?
It's a larger philosophical point about what is our business.
It's a large. Okay, so the point is like, what is GameStop? At this
what
point?
is GameStop?
Yeah.
Well,
I feel like it's becoming Spencer Gifts.
Yeah.
And that's like the best case scenario.
Or it's just it has cash infusions from being a meme stock, which doesn't last forever because now it's way down than what it was, and you can't keep going back to that well. So we're talking about how this is even more disgraceful than the fact that it's gone, is that how they ended it. was bad. There's no good way to axe a magazine and its staff, but there's a classy way to do it and a non-classy way of doing it. So they tweeted out, we don't know who tweeted this out, right? After 33 thrilling years of bringing you the latest news, reviews, and insights from the ever-evolving world of gaming, it is with a heavy heart that we announce the closure of Game Informer. From the early days of pixelated adventures to today's immersive virtual realms, we've been honored to share this incredible journey with you, our loyal readers. While our presses may stop, the passion for gaming that we've cultivated together will continue to live on. Thank you for being part of our epic quest, and may your own gaming adventures never end.
I have like literally zero doubt that is ChatGPT.
That's AI.
That is. I'm not even joking. Like that. Like I have played with ChatGPT. That's ChatGPT. That is just someone typing in like the parameters. Like we're closing down this magazine. It's called Game Informer. Write a tweet.
33 years it's been around.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And make it sound heartfelt.
Yeah.
And
like pixelated adventures.
Yeah. Not a lot of pixelated adventures on my consoles.
Pixelated adventures.
Yeah. So what happened was.
Yeah. Oh, here's the masthead we were just talking about. What is the count on that? Can you?
On what's that?
The masthead is in there. So what was the count at the end? We were just talking about that. So the number of names on there, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Like 12 about?
9, 10. Yeah, 12 people were at the end.
So, okay. So what happened was people were like, this is a bullshit sort of send-off. And then former Game Informer employees are like, we deserve, to have someone from the company give a heartfelt goodbye to this long-running magazine. Like, that's what a classy company would do. But it sounds like they just shut it all down and you guys are gone. So basically someone still left that wasn't Game Informer, that had access to the Twitter account, sent out a message that, let's see if I can read it out here. Our 33-year legacy deserves a genuine goodbye, written by a former Game Informer member. We're heartbroken by the shutdown of our publication, yet we leave with pride knowing we poured everything we had into it. In the words of our editor-in-chief, be well, play well. So then GameStop nuked the account.
Yeah, this blew my mind. Like when I saw this come in live, like my assumption, I guess I think the best of people was, they got through to someone at corporate and they're like, hey, let us write you a real tweet. And I thought this was something that was done on the level with, good intent on both sides, but they deleted the account like an hour later, so clearly not.
A long-running Twitter account to one of the last gaming magazines in the US.
Well, I don't even know if we mentioned this. The day they shut the magazine down, the website was gone. They just nuked the website.
The website as well.
Like decades of work.
Not put it in archive mode,
no.
Which would make sense. You would still get help. Add traffic to it.
Let it go a week. Just be like, we will shut it down in a week. Go revisit your favorite articles. Nothing.
Yeah, the editors and writers can get their work if they don't have it locally saved.
Right.
They nuked everything. It's the worst reaction you can have. It literally tells you that the C-suite folks don't care. They just don't care.
Yeah.
They have no hearts. They have no souls for what business they're in, and they don't care. And that's what's disgusting about it. On top of it, I think, being disgraceful. So fortunately, the last editor-in-chief put out a message. Let's see. Content director.
Yeah, Kyle was an EIC.
Kyle Hildred. So he put out, is it in this article? I don't have it. He put out a real goodbye message.
That vault, by the way, on the screen here.
What's that?
That vault is MIA. We don't know where that is now.
Okay, so that was Game Informer's archive?
So the retail video game archive is probably in a storage unit owned by GameStop. I'm really afraid of for its future. I don't know. I don't even know if they know they have it.
And GameStop will let it go delinquent and it'll be on frickin' Storage Wars.
It'll be the most incredible Storage Wars fight.
You'll see Frank on Storage Wars bidding against the guy. So, and that's the other thing is that Game Informer, they also had a podcast, they had other content. It wasn't just a magazine. And again, it's not about, if the numbers weren't there to support it, it's again, legacy product, what is your brand? Does this matter at all to you? Can you take this small hit to continue this going? Yeah. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
I mean, it is a point, but I just don't know what they get out of it, other than continue paying money to not have bad PR. You can't do that forever, right? Assuming this was a loss for them, this publication.
Again, to me, it's just a marketing loss.
I think they could have, they could have sunsetted it with more dignity. I think is the more realistic thing that we should have asked of them, right? Like, but
can you finish the next magazine that you're mostly done with at least and put a heartfelt message in print?
Right.
A lot of people would have bought that as the last magazine. They would have. People are like, oh my God, even if I haven't read it or been subscribed since the Homeland days, maybe I'll subscribe or buy it. Like, they could have done something.
Nintendo Power very famously underprinted the last issue.
Yes.
They didn't understand that, like, people would order the last issue of Nintendo Power.
Yeah, like, so even if it's going away, you can still have a positive ending. You can make some money on this. Or if you said, what if you said, in a perfect world, if GameStop would have come out and said, this might be the last year. We're going to let it go till the end of the year, and people might have rallied.
I don't think that's realistic, though, because
Sure.
I think this is like a product that, if I had to guess, they were trying to find a buyer for, and then they failed.
Well, that was the other news from I saw on Twitter. A past editor from maybe 10 years ago said we went to GameStop and offered to buy the magazine, and they said no.
I didn't catch that one.
Yeah, it's on the timeline. I forget. I think it was an editor that was around maybe 10, 12 years ago.
Got it.
Said that. So maybe 10, 12 years ago, it could have been given to someone else to carry forward, and it would have probably had enough support with that huge corporate oversight in order to make it work.
Yeah.
Do a Kickstarter, do an Indiegogo. There's lots of little magazines that do runs like that yearly. So it could have continued, just maybe not under GameStop.
Yeah, and I mean, what I'll say to that though is, like, Game Informer is just a name. You know what I mean? And it really is the people behind it that were the heart and soul of this thing. I expect that we'll see more from them. I would also encourage, if you're a Game Informer fan, like, MinMax is maybe the closest outlet you can get to like the spirit of what they were when they were actually supporting this thing. And you know, just go follow everyone on Twitter and stuff like that, and go support them if this kind of work is important to you. And just in general, support independent journalism. You know, Aftermath is another site that comes up for me where people who were sort of part of the corporate video game journalism machine finally got fed up and started their own thing. And you know, I don't know that it's like working for them yet, but like momentum has been building, and I think the future of journalism in general is going to be these smaller outlets that have a more direct connection with their readership, and
without corporate overlords to cut them out the knees like that.
We don't need them, man. Like, we don't need the GameStop Corporation to be able to tell you about video games. We can do this on our own.
Sure. And then so all the stock and tech bros in my comments saying, well, you know, it wasn't making money, and this will make interest for it when it makes a comeback. It's not. They're not going to come back with it. Like, that's not part of the strategy they're thinking.
People think they're going to come back.
That was like some of these
Game Informer.
It was a weird sort of cope thing where it's like, because obviously 99% of people are like, this is negative overall, and you have like the people that are still holding the stock don't want any negative press at all about GameStop to affect their holdings. Sure. They're trying to spin it here and there. And they're like, well, it wasn't making any profit. I was like, do you track the other stuff that's not making a profit, like their NFT marketplace, or is it just this magazine that's getting bad press right now? Like, this is the one where you're like, well, they had to cut this. It's like, okay, do you care about the salaries of the execs and how much they make if you're that concerned about this? No.
Yeah, the CEO's salary probably could pay for the entire magazine. Yeah.
For like 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, yes. So, anything else, Dan? You're a little less angry than Ian up here.
I'm sorry.
Just as knowledgeable.
I did bring a Diet Coke because he loves Diet Coke.
Okay, in spirit.
But I don't smoke weed. I mean, yeah, I am angry, but you know, I run a video game archive, right? Like that is where my brain tends to go, right? And I am very concerned about, you know, this thing that's on the screen, right? Most of this stuff is fairly replaceable on eBay if you really had to, but you know, there was some really weird stuff in there. I've walked through these vaults. You know, they had like a good like laser active collection, you know.
Wow.
Like they had weird stuff that companies would send them. They had like review builds of N-Gage games in there, you know. Some of them didn't even come out, right? And so I worry about stuff like that. But I mean, it's just hard. Okay, I think the reason that I'm not angry is because I think I already mourned video game print magazines like 5-10 years ago. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you're
like to me, Game Informer was an outlier. I'm sad for the individual people right?
Okay.
Like, I'm friends with Kyle, right? Like he lost his job. That hurts me. But the continued existence of Game Informer magazine to me was weird, like as a print magazine especially, because that's just not a business anymore. Is being a print magazine, and I'm not saying it couldn't have been. I'm not saying it couldn't have been a loss leader for them, but I, just in response to why am I not more angry? I think it's just like I've been thinking for years that this is coming any day now, and it came any day now. Sure. It's like having a really sick relative or something.
I hope they rally. I think there's still spaces for smaller magazines that you can publish with direct support.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So maybe in a perfect world.
But I just don't think that like a company with shareholders is the right environment for journalism anymore, and I think that's just like across all industries.
Sure.
And so this doesn't hurt me because again, this is just a name. This is just a trademark brand.
That's sure. But branding is what pulls people in because there's emotions attached to the brand.
Yeah, we can make our own, man.
Yeah, we can make super. I don't know, game informed person instead of game informed. I don't know.
Right, and that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, these were people like Game Informer as a brand is just a thing owned by these jerks, and
sure. I guess again like when Nintendo Power, they transferred over the publication rights to a company and continued it forward. Yeah. And even though that eventually ended, at least Nintendo allowed it to continue in the same style as someone else. Okay.
Well, they were paid good money for it, but yeah.
Sure, but GameStop wouldn't even allow that to happen, according to what I saw in Thailand, where someone was like, we want to buy it and do it.
Possibly. We don't really know what conversations were going on over the last year, but
I'm sure
to your point with Nintendo Power, go check out Nintendo Force, right? Like, if you really like Nintendo Power, you should be subscribed to Nintendo Force.
So there's still a place for these magazines. Yeah. There is, just maybe not with corporate overlords again.
Not with these jerks.
So
the point is, get rid of the jerks, and we'll all be happy.
So speaking of that, say goodbye to Frank Cifaldi. Thanks, Frank, for being part of the conversation.
And we are back.
Frank.
That was we had a great back and forth, great chemistry.
Good rapport.
Between Frank Cifaldi and I. So it's obviously sad that what's happened with Game Informer. But I wanted to get the inside skinny from a GameStop employee. I want to see what the thought was on the corporate side there a little bit, or the employee side. So I went to our local GameStop. Very nice employee. Very nice young man working there. And I looked around and I saw some of the what a GameStop looks like nowadays. The Funko Pops. They had G.I. Joe figures. The new classified ones were there. I was like, oh, there's some toy stuff. They still had some Switch games, a few little Wii games sitting there too. And then I asked them, what do you think about GameStop shutting down Game Informer? They told me, oh, that's not what happened. Game Informer went out of business on their own. They split off from GameStop a year and a half ago, and they were trying to sell the magazine through GameStop still. And I did a quick take, and I said, are you sure about that? And he said, oh yeah, that's what happened. So I didn't want to get in an argument with the person. I just, in my head, was wondering, because they're a nice person, I didn't want to say, hey, you're wrong. I'll show you why you're wrong. But I wondered if GameStop
What's the story GameStop's feeding the employees?
Is GameStop sending out disinformation to their employees and managers in case people ask about it? I'm not saying they are, but I wouldn't put it past them.
I would say that there's even a chance that it's likely because of how they did the fucking goodbye message and stuff like that on social media. Like, the whole thing seems to be them trying to... I didn't want to get anything with the employee. Sure.
But I could have said, listen, GameStop wiped out their website and now it redirects to GameStop.
Right.
And I felt saying if Game Informer existed on their own, why would they not only scrub their website, but also their Twitter account?
Yeah.
And say that GameStop basically screwed us over out of a real send-off message. I didn't get into that. I didn't want to, but I had a nice little GameStop visit there. So that's all I want to say about that.
Yeah.